Hello, are we back? Let me know when is good time to restart. Okay. Okay, great. So maybe I go ahead. I see Sonia is giving me signs. So sorry for this technical problem. You see, it wouldn't have happened if I would have been sitting with you, but it's okay. I'm back. So I think I was just sharing with you what we think is business integrity. That is, yes, anti-corruption and anti-bribery and compliance, but we really want you to think it as a broader picture and think also about all these other aspects, but sometimes don't really constitute, for example, clearly a breach of a law, or it's not clearly corruption, but still is a lack of integrity that can really harm also the possibilities of growth and your path towards sustainable development. And let me see here. Oh, yeah. And I think that also the slide moves for you. If not, let me know. What we can distinguish is also about difference between something that is clearly corruption and can, in most of the jurisdiction, is also indicated as a crime. And so we are thinking about grand corruption, theft, money laundering, bribery. But also there are other practices that are ethically questionable. Maybe they are not really identified clearly as a crime, but still are some practices that can pose problems. So we are thinking about data theft or underestimating losses, for example, in a financial report, finding the tricks to avoid paying taxes. Also, harassment, and especially maybe not acting upon it. These are all examples. So if we think about why this toolkit was needed, why we decided to work on it, well, for example, in a survey conducted by the World Economic Forum in 2015, it was a survey for millennials. And what emerged from that is that a big majority of the young people, like around 74%, thought that corruption is holding their country back. And also corruption is causing for them lost opportunities for their generation. At the same time, also, more than half of these young people felt that they didn't have the tools to combat corruption and to fight it in their communities, even if they thought that they have a possibility to take action about it, but maybe not sure of what action should be taken. So this is why we decided also to work on creating such a toolkit. It is to provide guidance to young entrepreneurs on what does it mean to act with integrity, what we mean by good governance, for example, and how to establish good governance practices even in a small scale company, because sometimes it's easier if you work in a big company where there are all these departments of many people working on compliance. But what if we are talking about a micro enterprise when maybe it's just you and a couple of other colleagues? So this is why we wanted to create a tool that is simple and easy to understand, and that maybe has many references to some other laws and regulations, mainly international practice. Then, of course, your work will also be to start to understand what is also the regulations at your local level. I want to tell you a bit more on how we created this toolkit, because I think that the process of creation was particularly important. As I mentioned, we work with the colleagues from the Youth Collab, who gathered really several people, young people from the region, and particularly we focus on the 6 ASEAN countries that were under fair business, let's say target countries. So we created these preliminary webinars that led to the workshop that was held in Bangkok in August 2019. And in these webinars, we have also invited accelerator, incubators, government institutions. We conducted surveys to test their interest, their level of knowledge, so the basis they were starting from, and also to understand what were their expectations. And then we really wanted to co-design, and we co-designed the workshop first, and then out of the workshop we ended up creating the toolkit that you could all see. And also we work on creating also a communication campaign to launch it through social media, through other webinars, and through different seminars at the country level. The training in workshop, as I mentioned, happened in August 2019, and it was really very interactive workshop. So we invited several speakers. We have an external facilitator. It's our Fair Business Integrity Advisor, who, let's say, was the main facilitator and moderator for the whole day. But really then we have a lot of also interactive moments, role playing, a competition. And this workshop was organized across 3 days. The first day focused on answering the question, what is business integrity and why it is important for you? The second question was on reflecting how I can make my business, put it in order my business. So what are the actions that I can take for my own company? And then the last day was to elaborate on what is the impact I can make in the society? What is my, let's say, contribution to create a fair business environment? So from an inward looking, we went into outward looking approach, let's say. And so the toolkit has been designed, as I say, in a simple language, making it as clear as possible. And also it's designed in a way that it should make it easier for people to really go into the section that you are interested in. You don't really need to read it all in good order. Maybe you can really use it as a way of consultation to try to find a response when you also maybe encounter an ethical dilemma, for example. And I think here it shows a little bit what is the table of contents. And so what are the main sessions? There is the first session is also talk to you about how it was generated. The second focuses on what is business integrity, what are the drivers, what are the international rules, the local laws, risks, and opportunities. The third session is about keeping your business in order. And so it's also about identifying the risks that your particular company can face, identifying red flags, what are the gray areas, what is code of conduct. It's really giving you some precise tools and sections that can guide you in understanding more. And finally, the last session is on working together for business integrity. So it's about ways to create collective actions, ideas to conduct your own training, where to find resources, where to get more information. Here, in my presentation, there are actually some extracts from the toolkit per se. For example, what are the red flags? How to identify them? No, red flags are not really something It's not yet a problem, but is an indication of a possible problem. So it's something we need to pay attention to. For example, people are refusing to use, electronic payment and really insisting on cash, or agents that are connected to government people, things like that, that we should pay attention because they may lead to a problem. Still to stay, remain in the color-coded area, we talk about gray areas. Gray areas is also, those kind of areas where it's not clear what is it. Is this is a gift, for example, is it something inappropriate, or is it something cultural? Maybe here you have to think also about the entity, the size of the gift, to understand if it can be misperceived or if it can constitute corruption. So these are some of the examples. We talk, of course, about bribery, about what are facilitation payments, and how to behave when we are requested or we feel like we should do this in order to speed up a process. So, of course, normally the response would be to avoid any kind of such behavior. You will find more information about conflict of interest, about harassment, including, for example, sexual harassment, and the importance also of setting up reporting mechanisms that allow people to report safely, also without fear of retaliation. We have a session on discrimination, and also, for example, on such a delicate issue like child labor. So here we also really see how much business integrity and human rights are kind of integrated. They really, there are many points of contact. I don't want to, I know that we are a bit running late, so I'm moving forward. I just wanted to let you know that the toolkit can really be used. You find the PDF on our website, and it is actually one of the most, let's say, downloaded products of UNDP. We really see it can be, even if it is a PDF, it's quite interactive. You can easily jump from one session to another. But it has also been the, let's say, a good resource as a basis for this online course that is published on the Youth Collab website. So this course is also available to anyone for free. You can just register, and it is part of the course on impact values, on fair business is good business. So this is also a way, maybe if you would like to offer it, maybe also to some of your employees, please check out this resource. This slide is really about an example on how it was used, beyond distributing the toolkit and knowing that several young people in the countries have done a training on it. We really are happy to discover how it is used then. And for example, this there is a group, the Federation of Business Professional Women of Thailand, and in particular the youth session of this federation, that used the toolkit, and this toolkit together with other resources generated by the project to set up the initiative Women Leadership in Business Integrity. So this is also taking the angle, of diversity and inclusion and business integrity. And after getting a first training on understanding the concept, what these women did is that they kept on meeting, and they met again, for example, after 3 months from the original workshop, to discuss, they call it the action day. It was to discuss on what were the actions that they took afterwards, what were the learnings from the toolkit that they could apply in their daily life, and that maybe tried to make a change in their company operations. So this is really to show you how these tools should help you also to build your collective action, your approach of coming in together to discuss common challenges. This toolkit has been used in our fair business countries, in Vietnam, Indonesia, but also it was, for example, presented in countries different from fair business, so Pakistan, Cambodia, and I know also in the Pacific. So what I mean is it's really important for us also to learn more about how this is being used, how also we can improve it. So if you have any, feedback, please feel free to email to us, or if you want to request more information or support on how to use it, we are really happy to help, and we work in close cooperation with our colleagues in the Pacific. And I think it's important to have this idea that there is a strength in collaboration, that when many people comes together with a similar problem, it is easier also to make our voice heard. And so we really hope that we can create a movement of change makers. And I think that a youth summit like the one you are now being in and participating is really the first step towards this movement of young leaders in the Pacific that are fighting against corruption, but even that fighting against something, fighting for something new, fighting for creating a fair business environment where everyone really can prosper, and where your own business operation are really not only enriching yourself and your community, but are having a positive impact at the higher level for the SDGs in general. So I will stop here, and I know that we are late, so just giving you the chance if there are any questions. If not, I think you will go to the following session, where you will have also a panel of really interesting people that can share their experience on the ground as well. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Viviana, and apologies, it seems like we're not alone facing the Zoom problem today. Seems to be a worldwide issue. However, we are very pleased, and thank you for that presentation. You made it just a little bit away from time, but we are there. So we now have the next session, where we'll be joined by the Chief Executive Officer of Samoa's Chamber of Commerce, and the Chief Executive Officer of Fiji Chamber of Commerce, who's here in person. And Gerardo will also join us. They're all online. So without much further ado, if Gerardo, Mr. Howard, Watasoni, so you're also there, could just turn on your videos, and maybe I will just ask Mr. Howard to go first, since he has some other commitments that he has let us know of. So over to you, Mr. Howard.
Thank you very much, Anit. Thank you very much to our facilitator, and talofa lava to all our campuses across the Pacific. Good afternoon. My apologies. I'll make this very quick, but also just want to first of all acknowledge the panel that's with me this afternoon. First of all, Bola Kameli, good to see you again with Sonny, and also our colleagues Irene and Gerardo joining us from around the world. First of all, I just want to quickly just carry on a little bit about what Liviana was talking about. She's excellently explained the business integrity toolkits. So Samoa has been very fortunate. Thank you to Sonia. I know Sonia is here on board, the team from UNDP and UNODC who supported this project. So in Samoa, we're one of the key implementers that rolled out the business integrity toolkit to our youth entrepreneurs. We made a public call in early September this year, where we made a call all to our business entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, to participate for our national TV and for social media platforms. It was a very inclusive process where we held 4 workshops, 2 in Big Island of Savai'i and here in the Big Island of Bolu. And one of the key things that made it successful was it was led by youth. So we had a youth, one woman entrepreneur who was the facilitator for that, and also our youth collab team. It's very important. Liviana mentioned that these 2 key project leads were part of this process that made it successful. So youth were able to link in and identify with the rollout of the project. To see some key essentials for us, working on the business integrity toolkits, it's really working with young SMEs, making understand what is corruption. And also we had key to this process is leaders from governments, leaders from the private sector, and also the support of the team from UN Park. We had John Hyde join us, who basically built up the capacity of our young entrepreneurs to go out there and make differences in their business community. And it's an excellent platform where we're able to share ideas and share the vision moving forward. As youth leaders, they're challenged to lead by example and moving forward, and also working with government to understand what are the mechanisms out there that can support them. Where are the voices that can advocate or raise their issues, and also the leaders in private sector on how they can be supportive to our young entrepreneurs coming up through the system. So all in all, it's an excellent program. I think Viviana's pretty much touched on the essentials of the toolkit. But for us in Samoa, we want to make it accessible to more young entrepreneurs. I mean, we trained close to 70, but the reality there's more out there, and we hope to provide more of the support moving forward. And also, you know, the team at UNDP and ODC are doing some excellent work here. Also, we've just finished workshops with our women entrepreneurs, and it's just giving more access to these key sectors and these key women entrepreneurs and business entrepreneurs to support them moving forward. So I just want, especially for me, I just want to acknowledge the team at USP for this great initiative, and also invite some of our youth based here in Samoa who weren't aware of this program to please come and visit us at the Samoa Chamber of Commerce. We're happy to have a conversation with you if you're moving into entrepreneurship. And also we've got an upcoming youth collab early next year in partnership with UNDP. So thank you very much, team. Thank you, USP. Again, special acknowledgements for facilitators and also my colleagues from Fiji and the Pacific. But thank you for time.
Thank you very much, CEO of Samoa Chamber of Commerce. And we might now move on to Gerardo, if you would like to go next.
Hello, everybody. Hope you can hear me. I echo, first of all, the desire to have been with you in person. I'm actually very far from you in Washington, D.C. But nonetheless, I think through the technology, now we're able to kind of shorten the gaps and be together. What a wonderful initiative of USPSA to bring together thousands of youth leaders to talk about a very important topic that is important, I think, everywhere nowadays. So thank you for the invitation. I want to basically contribute to the very rich discussion of the summit by bringing the perspective of someone who is not a business leader, who has not managed a business, but probably somebody who comes from a much more social science and political science perspective, the issue of governance. Certainly my work has brought me together to work with different youth organizations and youth leaderships across the world, and particularly in bringing to their attention the topic of accountability, transparency, and integrity. And certainly, I would like to share just maybe a few thoughts that I have from that perspective that could actually complement what you have discussed. I think first, I would say that it is very important, if it hasn't been mentioned yet, to look at the what it has been called the Youth 230 strategy that was actually adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 2018. It is a very comprehensive aspirational framework that pretty much brings together 5 goals for how youth can actually be agents of change and also leaders in driving the Agenda 2030. And I just want to kind of mention a little bit those 5 goals because they're very important. First, certainly the strategy wants to amplify the voices of the youth, particularly to promote a peaceful and sustainable world. That means engagement, participation, and advocacy. So that's one goal. The second goal is to support young people's greater access to quality education and health services. A third one is to support young people's greater access to decent work and productive employment. The fourth one is to protect and promote the rights of young people and support their civic and political engagement. And the fifth one is support young people as catalysts for peace and security and humanitarian action. I think these particular goals are very important because the issues of accountability, transparency, and integrity are cross-cutting to these 5 goals. I don't think we can accomplish these goals if we don't have basically these integrity and accountability and transparency tools. This is important because I think this particular framework offers a global framework to start talking about youth issues. And a lesson that I have, and that's the first point that I want to make, is that we want to make sure that we find not only global frameworks, but also regional frameworks and localized frameworks to begin to promote basically youth engagement in governance. Definitely, there was already mention of the fact that there is a particular sustainable development goal, number 16, that is devoted specifically to good governance areas. But I think these frameworks offer the reference to be able to have ideas, to be able to promote, and to be able to engage youth and say, we're not coming from a different planet. There are frameworks basically that will allow us to create sufficient spaces and metrics to understand what's going on. So that's number 1. The second one is, as a political scientist, I appreciate very much the importance that youth bring to democratic governance. As you know, by default, democratic governance is inclusive. It has to be representative. It needs to be accountable. But today in the world, the evidence is showing that youth are very disenchanted with democratic governance. And you can see that in maybe a few statistics that you can find everywhere around the world. Young people are not voting as they should in large numbers when there's elections. There's a lot of distrust or mistrust of young people to their representatives and politicians in particular, and also institutions. And the third one, which is most important, they feel excluded from decision-making that affects their lives. And so that is a challenge that democratic governance systems have around the world that they need to fix. So that's the second kind of thought that I want to leave you with. There's obviously no easy solution. There is no blueprint. Each country, each locale actually needs to find solutions, but it is definitely a challenge. In that context of democratic governance, I always, this is my third point, I always like to define democratic governance not only as an attribute of government, which often is seen as such, but is actually an attribute of both government and civil society, because both in democratic governance have a very particular and specialized role to play. And if these two particular elements of democratic governance are not working as they should, certainly the outcome is not going to be adequate. And so I call this the supply and demand model, in which the supply in this case is government, the role of providing vision, translating visions into policies, but also the demand, which is actually the civil society role in making sure that the government is accountable, making sure that they're engaging. There are several terminologies that you can actually identify about this. I mean, you can talk about something that's called horizontal accountability, which is accountability that basically involves institutions within the government to ensure check and balances. But also you can talk about the vertical accountability in which civil society and organizations are key. in that dichotomy, I think is very important to make sure that there is strategic engagement of youth regarding decisions, regarding not elections in this case, but what happens between elections, because policy making affects really the lives of many people. So this supply and demand is another issue that is very important to generate dialogue and engagement with policymakers and very strategically hold them accountable for what they're supposed to do. And then I wanted to get to the fourth one, and with this I will culminate my intervention, which is the issue of capacity, knowledge, and tools. We saw Ms. Sarsi presented that one of the toolkits that is available to promote integrity in business, but there are other tools developed particularly for governance and for local systems. And so capacity for me is really the link that we have with youth, because quite fairly, and I'm glad the university is involved in this initiative. I mean, it's one of these actors that has not been as engaged in issues of democratic governance as they should. And so capacity, knowledge, and exposure to tools is important, I think, because of three important reasons. And youth is a very important cohort to actually provide training and capacity building. They're still in a very formative stage in a way that we can actually help and guide, not only with knowledge, but also with judgment for them to make these decisions. But I want to kind of leave you with three thoughts about why I think basically engaging young people to build their capacities in accountability and integrity are important. The first one has to do because there is an intrinsic value on this connection. Training on integrity and accountability raises awareness about young people's rights to participate in decisions that affect them, and also to uphold their rights as well. So that's number one. The second one, it has an instrumental value. Making the connection between integrity and youth and accountability encourages, as we've seen tonight, young people to be engaged in democratic governance processes and basically engage in policy, dialogue, and debate. And why not influence basically certain decisions and outcomes to benefit their own particular needs. Last but not least, something that we have not talked a lot about lately all over the world is the issue of the civic value of actually bringing integrity and youth together. We need to develop active citizens to play a role in improving their community and also to participate in the decision-making process. I think what's coming back is basically civic engagement, and certainly a pillar of that civic engagement has to be values of accountability, integrity, and transparency. Otherwise, certainly the vicious circle of corruption and the vicious circle of unethical practices will continue. I'll leave you with those thoughts, and I know that there is other speakers that will actually follow me, but again, thank you for inviting me, and I'm very happy to be able to have this opportunity to share some thoughts with you.
Thank you very much, Gerardo. We will now come back to our main host venue, Japan ICT. And here with us is the Chief Executive Officer of Fiji Commerce, Chamber of Commerce and Employees Federation, Mr. Kameli Batiweti. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Anit, and I acknowledge Anit. Thank you very much for the invitation to come and speak here today. I also see Dr. Sonia Trazanoska, who is also here, and she'll be speaking afterwards. And I thank you, Gerardo, and also Robert for speaking earlier on. Liviana, I enjoyed your session, Liviana. You came up with a lot of principles and a framework on the toolkit. Very excited for the youths that they will have a toolkit that they can work with. Watisoni is going to be speaking after me, and we are part of the Fiji Commerce and Employers Federation. We have 10 councils as part of our federation, and 2 of the 10 councils involve youths. One is the Youth Entrepreneurs Council that Watisoni is the chairperson of, and the second one is the Women Entrepreneurs Business Council. And so if anyone would like to know more about those councils, please speak to Watisoni or I, and we'd be happy to answer your questions. I will not be repeating the principles that Gerardo and Lidiana and Hobart spoke about. I'll just speak on my experiences in the areas of business integrity, accountability, and good governance. I started work as a 17-year-old young person many years ago, and I saw, I was a storeman, and I started off as a storeman, and in the stores function involves purchasing, and we noticed as young people that there were a lot of transactions that were not legal, a lot of transactions that were not the right thing to do. And so business integrity is about doing the right thing for the business, doing the right thing for the customers, doing the right thing for the employees. And so we witnessed it as young people growing up in the business that it was wrong. As an example, we had suppliers who would be sitting in our boss's office and they would be drinking kava, yangona. And our boss would call out and say, bring in a purchase order. We want to buy all these things. And we tell our boss, but boss, we have plenty in stock. And he says, you do as I tell you to do. You follow my instructions. And so in Fiji, one of the Employment Relations Act, the 5 areas that you can terminate or summarily dismiss a person, one of them is a refusal to follow instructions. And so one example I'd like to share with the youth today is that, and it's a legal case, it's a case law. So there is a precedent that has been set in the year 2002, I think, when a High Court judgment was made against the soldiers who mutinied. Their excuse was they were following orders, and so the High Court judge at that time asked the question: were you following lawful and were you following reasonable instructions? And the answer was it was not lawful and it was unreasonable. And so whenever you receive instructions, my advice to youths is to follow lawful and reasonable instructions. You will not lose your job, you will not lose your business if you're an entrepreneur, because the wrong ethics, the wrong business practices usually finds itself in social media platforms, and it is screamed or shouted out on the rooftops. How do we avoid these practices? My experience has been that policies have to be written up. One key policy, and I understand that you are young entrepreneurs, but I speak from the other side. One policy that was quite significant was the Code of Business Conduct. And the Code of Business Conduct starts off with integrity, how one is expected to behave, and it talks about what are the remedy for speaking up, and also encourages whistleblower. And whistleblower is a great policy to discourage corruption, discourage anti-business behaviors, and also discourages people who are not accountable for their actions. And so one of the companies I worked for, the general manager lost his job because of a whistleblower who whistleblew this general manager, and he lost his job many years ago. And so these policies are quite powerful. They give you the ammunition to stand up for your right and to speak out for your right also. And so another one that I heard, I think Liliana spoke about, and I think Gerardo, you spoke about it also, was the gifts policy. The gifts, there are some times where a gold watch is given to a significant person in the organization. Is that appropriate? And so there has to be a gifts policy that dictates what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, and how you can politely and respectfully refuse a gift, or if the gift is something that will damage the reputation or the relationship, you may politely inform the person who's giving the gift that you will raffle the gift, and the money that's made from that is given to one society or something of that sort. And so the policy is the driving force, and I can assure you, with the Employment Relations Act 2007 being what it is, no one will lose their job or their employment for standing up for what is right and for advocating for business integrity, accountability, and good governance. I think I'll stop there for now, Anit, and I thank you again for the opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Sonia, for the invite to speak here today. Good night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kameli Bativati. Those were really insightful things that you have shared with us, and we all appreciate that. I think things have just fallen into place ever since we started with the first speech right into the morning up till now. And we will now just move on to our final speaker, Mr. Watisoni, the chair of the Young Entrepreneurs Council of Fiji, is with us. We had one more speaker. Unfortunately, the president of Palau's Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Irene, hasn't been able to join. It seems like the Zoom issue has got onto that. But Watisoni, thank you for being here, and over to you for the final speaker. Go ahead, Watisoni. We cannot hear you, Watisoni.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Go ahead.
Sorry, something seems to be wrong with my mic. No, just thank you to the speakers and Dr. Sonia, good to see you on here again. And Liviana, your presentation was pretty good. It gave us a bit of a refresher on the toolkit. By way of introduction, Young Entrepreneurs Council, like Kameli just mentioned, is one of the 10 councils, I think, under the Fiji Commerce Employers Federation. And we were present at a forum that was organized by UNPREC in 20, getting confused with the years. It seems like, it doesn't even seem like we're in almost reaching 2022. So 2020, we were there in 2020, and it was a training workshop organized by UNDP, UNPREC, and we were, the Young Entrepreneurs Council had sent some of its members to attend the workshop, and it was a training on the toolkit. And the toolkit is an amazing little document, and it's good for this dissemination by the Young Entrepreneurs Council. We did, after the workshop, it was good exchanging experiences with other young entrepreneurs that were present also at the workshop, and the kinds of situations that they were confronted with, that, sort of borderline corruption. We also had present in the room were members from the Fiji Independent Commission Against Corruption also, which is the body that looks up to anti-corruption in Fiji. After that workshop, after the training of the toolkit, we did collaborate again with UNPREC to champion the 7 outcomes, the outcome statement that came out of the workshop, to push for the agenda of the toolkit and spreading it amongst not only our members, but other young entrepreneurs within Fiji as well. Unfortunately, the COVID had taken its second wave here in Fiji, entered into that partnership with UNPRAC, but we hope to continue it this year, again, with the dissemination of the toolkit, and also promoting anti-corruption and these values. I think for me, the main stemming issue out of all of this is really just brings you back to the basics of telling the truth and what truth is to you on an individual basis. And if there's anything that I picked up from these trainings, it's just that igniting or really just reminding us of the basic values of telling the truth and speaking the truth and just being honest in every and all your dealings, not only in your business life, but also in your personal life, because it carries over. And just being truthful in your transactions, these things seem to carry, habits will form. And you will carry this with you if you have your basic values. I don't think if you practice them on a Monday basis, I don't think you'll have any problem in implementing truthful practices in new businesses, because you already do it in your everyday life. I thank UNPRAC with the training, because what it also led to was more partnerships formed with FICAC, and we did some more anti-corruption trainings with our members at the Young Entrepreneurs Council. We also invited some members also from the Women Entrepreneurs Business Council also that were present. And what FICAC hit was a simple template about an anti-corruption policy that they shared with our members, and that was something that we could implement in our individual businesses with also the assistance of UNPRAC. So we're very grateful to Dr. Sonia. She was very instrumental with getting YAC on board and in our partnerships as well. So yeah, I'd just like to leave you with that thought, and comes back down to every individual practicing the truth in your daily experiences in your daily life. So it's not only like a top-down approach, and I thank UNPRAC again for allowing us the partnership to incorporate the top-down approach with the toolkit. I would also emphasize with the young entrepreneurs and the younger members or students that are present at Uspsa at the stage and listening in, it's really, it boils down to the basic value of just telling the truth, speaking the truth, and walking in truth. Really. So I'll just leave you with that thought, guys. Thank you very much for your thoughts and views on all of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Soni, and thank you very much, Gerardo, and Robert has left. Mr. Kameli is still here, but thank you so much for those insights. It was really interesting to hear that and connected with what Liviana had shared earlier and other speakers had shared earlier. I hope you were able to watch our youth panel discussion, which went overboard a bit, but it's all connecting, and then the dots have all connected. And I'm very pleased to inform everyone that despite the technical difficulties that we have faced today, we have reached the end of the summit today, and with just one speaker left to conclude and give remarks on behalf of UNDP, who will just sum up through her words. So without much further ado, Dr. Sonia, the screen is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Anit. It has been a fantastic day. I enjoyed it so much. I do wish to first of all thank and commend the University of South Pacific Students Association for organizing and hosting today such an impressive Pacific Youth Summit on the values of integrity for the achievement of sustainable development. The level of engagement in this Pacific Youth Summit has been remarkably high. The fact of having over 5,000 registered participants online in person, some were following on the YouTube channel, is telling, is indeed telling, is about many things, and specifically about the interest and enthusiasm and the strength of youth on the topic of integrity. Also, such a high level of support from diverse institutions around the organization of this panel, it is also encouraging. This is most likely an unprecedented youth event so far in the Pacific, in my humble assessment, in terms of outreach, participation, scope, and the quality of the dialogue. So a big and heartfelt thank you. We're really humbled to see such an impressive gathering of young people. On behalf of the UNDP Pacific Office in Fiji and the United Nations Pacific Regional Anti-Corruption Project, I would also like to thank Mani Mati, the USP student president, who spoke at the beginning, the acting Secretary General of the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat, Dr. Philemon Manon, who represented the position and the voice of a very important regional organization. I.T.S has been a long partner of UNDP Pacific Office as well. We work together intensively on the development and endorsement of the TINAVA Pacific Unity Against Corruption vision. The spirit and the values of the TINAVA Pacific Unity Against Corruption vision are firmly anchored on the Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals, and youth have indeed an important role to play in advancing this regional Pacific vision. Today, youth have clearly demonstrated that they are indispensable partners and future leaders to make this vision a reality for the people in the Pacific. Our appreciation also goes to our donor, the New Zealand government and the New Zealand High Commission in Fiji, for joining the event and also for generously supporting and contributing to the anti-corruption efforts in the Pacific through UNPRAC and overall. I would like also to thank our partners and supporters, the youth leaders at USP campuses in Solomon Islands, Latoka, Labasa, Laukala, Tonga, Vanuatu, and Samoa. Also, US Embassy, Suva Youth Council, and the fantastic team of young leaders who organized a very interesting panel discussion today. So thank you very, very much, Youth Council. You enriched the dialogue today and also brought your perspectives in the discussions. So we really appreciate your engagement. Heartfelt thanks also to the Chambers of Commerce of Samoa, our friend Hubert, who spoke. We've been working with the Chambers of Commerce Samoa. We do hope that especially the team of young students in Samoa will continue the dialogue directly with the Chamber of Commerce in Samoa on the ground. They can share their experiences on promoting integrity among young entrepreneurs, and I'm happy that this dialogue can continue directly, and you can benefit from their knowledge, and also including on the business toolkit developed by UNDP. My also sincere appreciation and thanks to the Fiji Commerce and Employees Federation, Mr. Kameli Bativiti, a long-standing partner of UNDP. We've been working together on many initiatives. Thank you also again for sharing your wisdom, also for starting this journey. In fact, the Young Entrepreneurs Business Integrity journey started in Fiji. So thank you so much, Mr. Bativiti. And with your wisdom and initiative, we actually created, continued this movement across the Pacific, and this is where we are. So the initial sparkle was here ignited in Fiji. Also, Batisuni Nata, thank you as well, Chair of the Young Entrepreneurs Council in Fiji. This is taken even further in Fiji with the outcome statement, and hopefully other youth in the Pacific will follow suit. All of you have been already part of the initial core group of Pacific champions, eager to spread the knowledge. So a big thank you to all of you that you generously are still sharing your knowledge, and you are ready to scale it up further and spread it further. Thank you, Gerardo. Bertin is also our long-term partner. He's been working with UNDP on several initiatives. We have capitalized from his knowledge and expertise. Thank you once again for really bringing some very, very valid points that really also indicative of the different dimensions of this dialogue. We managed to touch upon some issues today. There are also a range of other issues that we hope to continue discussing with this team of young people. As Gerardo was mentioning, horizontal accountability, vertical accountability, the demand, the supply side. So there are a lot of issues to be further unpacked, and we do hope that today we planted some seeds, and depending on your interests, we remain available to continue unpacking these issues and supporting you with, again, knowledge, capacity building, even some small steps can make a big difference. Also, our thanks to FICAC representatives, the Fiji Independent Commission Against Corruption and their team for bringing the important institutional perspectives into the integrity dialogue among the Pacific youth. So thank you so much. They have also been a partner of UNDP on many important initiatives in Fiji, and they're always willing to share their experiences sub-regionally and regionally. So our heartfelt thanks to the FICAC team as well. Finally, Deputy Secretary General of USPSA, Annette Kumar, who is the one with whom we started this initiative and this dialogue. He embraced the opportunity for cooperation immediately after our first discussion, and we did realize that we do have a shared commitment to spread this knowledge and really turn it into a genuine Pacific movement. Last but not least, thanks to everyone attending the Pacific Youth Summit. UNDP wants to hear from you. We appreciate your views, and your contributions and efforts are critical for building a sustainable and resilient future for the Pacific. My team, UNDP, finally, thanks, big heartfelt thanks, UNDP Regional Hub, Liviana, thank you so much. We are one and the same UNDP, just we are sitting in different parts of the world, but we are the one UNDP, and whenever possible, we are trying to synergize, to learn from each other, and to share our experiences as much as possible. So thanks, Liviana, and my team from the UNDP Pacific office. Avanesh, thank you so much, Tomoko, Maria, and Arti, for your team spirit, hard work, and for keeping the sense of humor when we are dealing with very serious and complex issues. So my heartfelt thanks, and Arti and Avanesh are sitting in the USP premises, so thank you for being there. Dear young friends, this summit today is happening in the eve of the Anti-Corruption Day, 9th of December, as mentioned at the beginning, also by the UNDP resident representative, Mr. Levan Buadze, who explained that the Anti-Corruption Day seeks to highlight this year the rights and responsibilities of everyone, including states, governments, civil servants, law enforcement officers, media, private sector, civil society, academia, the public, and youth, in tackling corruption and promoting integrity. So every person, young or old, has a role to play to prevent and counter corruption and promote integrity in order to promote resilience and integrity at all levels of society. Today we covered a number of topics, and I won't do justice if I mention any of them. It was really interesting that we kept coming back to transparency, accountability, to the concepts of transparency, accountability, anti-corruption, integrity, realizing that this is really part of one ecosystem. These are issues that go one together with the other. And I'm happy that all of these issues came to the surface, and the youth indeed seem to understand the values of these issues and their potential role in further advancement of the integrity in the Pacific. We try to establish what we know, what is being done, what else might be done through a constructive, open, and productive dialogue. As we look forward, we are well aware that change started happening right now, in my view. The movement, the Pacific, the all Pacific, the Pan-Pacific movement, in my view, started today. And you are leading the change, the young people across the Pacific. You are at the forefront of the integrity for achieving sustainable development. You are innovating and creating. You are the ones offering solutions on how you can improve the quality of life in your communities, in your families, in your countries, and in the Pacific as well as a region. It is also time for self-reflection, and I did hear some self-reflection as well from some young people, which is really appreciated. Many of you might also have concerns in terms of how long will this journey take. There are definitely challenges. There will be obstacles and roadblocks for us to achieve measurable results. But in my view, this should only inspire you to start sooner and work even harder to overcome all challenges in a collaborative and collective action with all other stakeholders. Dear young colleagues, although apparently there is no easy solution, your enthusiasm shows us that we must find ways to reinvigorate your engagement in promoting integrity, including in the business sector, as a very important driver for sustainable development. We need to continue to address the complex national and regional challenges and show the world that the Pacific youth is indeed saying a resolute yes to integrity. Your competence and expertise, your passion and vision for a sustainable future will hopefully be sustained as a regional integrity movement. I hope that you will be the generation who will bring the SDGs home in 2030, and count on us among your supporters and partners on this path. We have been taking careful notes from the discussions today. We were listening very carefully to all of you, and we look forward to having today's deliberations captured, consolidated, and translated into an outcome document, which we hope to help us pave the way for the future steps on this integrity journey. We will definitely be coming back to you with our colleagues, and through the lead from USPSA, they will be consulting you on the outcome statement and also on some ideas as to what next, what after this summit, and where do we want to go together. And also for us at UNDP, our question is how we can help you on that part, and how we can accompany you on that part, which you are owning. It's your own path. It's the Pacific path. I thank you very much, all of you. I look forward to our continued partnership with USPSA and every single one of you, all the institutions and individuals. And I do hope that you will cherish this in this day. You will have fond memories about these days. I hope you met perhaps some new friends and new colleagues, and then maybe you will even informally and continue this dialogue among you, and then also try and take it up at levels to make a systemic change for your countries. Thank you very much once again. It has been an honor and pleasure, and I wish you a successful evening and all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sonia. And I think you have just very perfectly summarized and thanked everyone who were involved in this organization, and all the speakers, all the panelists who have come together to deliver this Pacific Youth Summit. Of course, I agree, one of the biggest virtual events of 2021, as we have been tweeting since this morning. And so to all our participants who have joined us virtually and those in person at the USP's campuses across the Blue Pacific, we will be sending out a very short survey by tomorrow morning. You will get that in your email accounts. Please, it will just take 2 minutes of your time to fill that survey. It's very important that you give us feedback of how this summit went, because as Sonia has mentioned, we will try and take this partnership forward. There will be an outcome of the summit. It will be shared with each and every one of you, and your feedback from that survey will help us make things better as we move forward into this journey together to fight corruption, to promote the values of integrity, good governance, and of course, as we lead up to 2030 for the overall achievement of Agenda 2030. So with those words, thank you very much once again on behalf of the host venue here, behalf of USPSA. I thank each and every one of you, and I hope that we will all stay connected and we will cross paths very, very, very soon again as we take on the outcomes forward onto next year and beyond. Once again, thank you very much. Enjoy your evening. I know it's a Monday in Cook Islands and Niue, and few hours ahead some other campuses, few hours behind some other campuses, but we all made it happen. So hats off to each and every one of you. Thank you very much, and we'll see you all again.
Bye bye. Thank you, Emalos.
Mother from Niue.
Thank you, Emalos, someone away, and all of you. Thank you. Have a nice day and blessed evening.
Thank you, Tomas.
All good. Thank you.